Hi everybody. So in this video today, we're going to talk about the dangers of thinking too big, right? Now, this might sound controversial. In fact, actually, I have a hot take on this whole idea of thinking too big or thinking big, right? You've probably heard this saying where people say, you got to think bigger, you got to go faster, you got to, even evangelists will go this way, right? They'll say like, you got to be really like, good at evangelizing and touch millions of people, right? But the reality is, that's not what Jesus calls us to do. Jesus calls us to do great and big things, but it's the small things that add up, right? And there's a beautiful passage from Scripture, I'm sure you all have heard it. It comes from Matthew chapter 17, verse 20 through 21. For truly I tell you, if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you, right? So what does Jesus mean when he says that? Well, he says, if you look at a mustard seed, it's extremely tiny. It's very small, but it grows into a beautiful tree, right? And my message for you guys today is maybe you're someone that wants to evangelize. Maybe you want to have a YouTube channel. Maybe you want to post more on social media. Maybe you want to be more, outspoken about the faith. Maybe it's touched you in a special way, and you want to see if it can help other people as well, right? And sometimes I fall into this trap, and maybe you have as well, is you look at like a video that you spent a lot of time on, you spent a lot of time working on it, and it has like 20 views, right? Or maybe you make a post on Facebook about something that really touched your heart, or you share something and it has like no comments, right? Or nobody's sharing it, nobody's liking it. And then you look at something else that's completely horrendous and sinful, and you see that being shared and propagated and all that stuff, and you get discouraged, right? You think like, oh, I'm not doing my job well enough, because you'll compare yourself to other YouTubers like Pints with Aquinas, or just to name a few others, right? You'll look at them and be like, wow, they get so many views, they get millions of views, so many comments, so many people are being drawn to their videos, they're making a huge impact, and you think to yourself, wow, I feel so inadequate because I can't get that many views, I can't get that many subscribers and followers, and I'm not spreading the kingdom well enough, right? And maybe even in your personal life, like you are telling your friends about, God, you're telling them about the church, and then nobody really bats an eye at you, and they just, or maybe in some cases, they just utterly reject you or insult you, right? But the message that Jesus is telling us is that it's not that we think big, because here's the thing, only God can take what we do and do what he wants with it. But we got to remember that when we are planting seeds of faith, it's not how many seeds we plant. It's the fact that we're doing it, right? The fact that you're doing it. If you have 20 views on a video talking about your relationship with God, and maybe how the rosary changed you, or maybe your conversion story, whatever it is, and 20 people see it, perhaps one out of those 20 people saw your message and were like, wow, I need to change. I need to change my life. I'm going to try praying the rosary. Guess what? You converted one soul, right? Or you were instrumental in helping that soul convert. Now that person who's been changed by the rosary, maybe they post a video about how the rosary changed them. They get 20 views, right? And I'm being very like this is like a mini thing. You're probably gonna get more views than that, but let's say it's 20. And then one person out of that video also listens. You guys see what happens, right? You cause this chain reaction, this chain effect. And for many of the saints that we know of today, a lot of them started very, very small, and their work wasn't really well known until long after they were dead. Case in point, I'm writing a book about Blessed Takayama, and I'm seeing the tremendous impact he had, right? The tremendous impact he had on people. And he's not really being known much until today, and he lived in the 1500s, and he's finally getting the teachings and the messages that he had. And the story of his life is incredible, and now people are finally going to know about it, right? And it's ironic because one of the last things that he says is, I don't think anyone will remember me, right? And I looked at that passage, in a book that I'm reading about him, and in my mind I was like, I got you, bro. I'll make sure everyone knows. But that was just my inner thoughts. But anyway, yeah, so this is a message, just like, don't be discouraged by, thinking big, right? Everyone says that, think big, think big. Remember that can be easily twisted into the ways of the world, right? And this can lead to avarice, right? If you are thinking big, you're only thinking big about everything that you do, um, it could lead to you just hoarding and living a life that's not necessary, right? And what I mean by that, like living in abundance in a way that's not necessary, and it's going to cause you stress. And I'm telling you, I'm telling you from experience, if you chase money, you chase wealth, you chase gain, status, it's not going to make you happy. The only thing that you can possibly be satisfied with is God. Now, you might be in the situation where sometimes you want to change and you want to follow the Lord more, and you still feel this sense of longing. And that's a good thing, because God placed that in you because he wants you to remember, always remember as a reminder, that you're never going to be happy in this life. And in fact, there's many times in my spiritual life where I was going through like these dark moments, these dark nights of the soul, and I had to reframe it. And when I was studying the works of the saints, is that it's actually a good thing, because God is placing that within you to remind you to say, hey, you're getting all these consolations, great. Here's all these spiritual cookies, all right? Maybe you feel great. It's not going to last forever, though. I don't want you to fall in love with this. I want you to fall in love with me, right? Think about if you have a spouse. You love your spouse, right? I love my spouse, okay? We love each other, but does that mean we always, does that mean she's gonna constantly give me good feelings all the time, 24/7? And am I gonna do the same for her? No, right? We're gonna argue sometimes. We're gonna have difficulties in our marriage, and that's fine, and that's just part of it. But at the end of the day, we still love each other, right? Just like when you have a relationship with God, if God's giving you all these good feelings, which is why this is really scary, you can't treat God based on your feelings all the time. You gotta be more logical about it. If you treat God based on your feelings and how you feel about him, how he's giving you messages, that's not a healthy relationship. The relationship is built not just on how someone makes you feel, but it's built on trust. It's built on loyalty. It's built on just communication, right? There's been many times in my prayers where I feel like God is silent, like God doesn't tell me anything. And there's sometimes when I pray where I feel like God is speaking to me a lot. Like I'll feel like I get all these ideas, everything just coming to me right away. But in those moments where he's silent, that's not necessarily meaning that God is ignoring me. He hears me. I think back to when I teach martial art lessons, and when I'm working with a kid who's being really emotional, right? Maybe they're complaining about a lot of things. Maybe they're just getting really worked up about something. And I just sit there and I be quiet and I just listen. And I listen and I listen and I listen and I'm silent, right? And the reason why I'm silent is because I want them to get everything out, right? I want them to get everything out, and then I want them to pause and reflect on what they just said. If I keep interrupting them, right? They're not gonna be able to fully extrapolate what they're trying to say. And I feel like God does that as well. He sometimes lets us talk, lets us speak for long periods of time while he may seem silent, in order for us to reflect on the own words that we say, right? And that's a video for another time. I can go into that in another topic. But yeah, I just wanted to share this message with you guys today. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See y'all soon. God bless.